You know, when you sit down in a dark theater and the previews end and the music swells, you settle into your seat to watch a movie.
Right. You're ready for the show.
Yeah, and there's this underlying assumption that you are just there to be entertained. Like for the next 2 hours, you get to be this totally passive observer, just absorbing a story. It feels, I don't know, entirely harmless?
Oh, absolutely. It feels like an escape, you know? You just leave your real world stress at the door and let the screen do all the work.
Exactly. But what if that screen is actually this highly effective, beautifully disguised classroom?
Oh, wow.
Right. And what if the lesson being taught through the lighting, the soundtrack, the framing of the camera is slowly and silently rewiring your fundamental understanding of right, wrong, and your entire place in the universe?
That is a huge question.
It is. So welcome to this deep dive. Today we are on a mission to fundamentally challenge how you watch movies, read books, and, well, even listen to the playlist you probably have on right now.
It really is a profound shift in perspective. And, you know, to be clear right from the start, whether you're a massive film buff, a casual viewer, or just someone entirely checked out of pop culture, the mechanics of how stories shape our internal compass, well, they affect all of us.
Yeah, they really do. So to understand this, we are pulling our insights today from a really fascinating set of scholarly notes compiled by Nakhoda publications.
Right.
And their motto, by the way, is "The pen is mightier than the sword," which is incredibly fitting for what we are about to explore here.
It definitely sets the tone.
Yeah. So these notes detail the philosophical critique of modern Western aesthetics by Professor Syed Naquib Al-Attas. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Al-Attas is arguing that the whole concept of tragedy, you know, the stories of suffering and downfall that have basically shaped Western storytelling for centuries, has drastically shifted.
Shifted how exactly?
Well, it used to be about fate and sin, but now it has become this like massive exaltation of human rebellion. And he argues this is actually a brilliantly packaged spiritual danger.
And before we get too deep into the weeds here, it's important to state that our goal today is to impartially explore Al-Attas's framework.
Right, exactly.
So whether you personally align with the theology or not, what's so compelling here is that this perspective offers a really profound alternative lens on global pop culture. It essentially asks us to critically examine the philosophy embedded in the art we consume and digest every single day.
Okay, so I want to start with this shift in storytelling. Because usually when you and I think of a tragedy, we just think of a sad story. Right?
Yeah, like a couple breaks up or a beloved character dies.
Exactly. Or a bad mistake just ruins someone's life. But according to Al-Attas, modern Western tragedy takes human suffering, specifically suffering that comes from rebellion, and it mechanically converts it into something heroic.
Right.
And I'm honestly struggling to see how that works. Could you explain the core of this critique? Because the text keeps referring to something called the spirit of Iblis.
Yeah, so what's fascinating here is how Al-Attas defines that specific term. In Islamic theology, Iblis, or Satan, is not just some generic bad guy.
Okay.
He is the ultimate symbol of arrogance, which is called kibr, and rebellion against God. It is the absolute fundamental refusal to submit to a higher power.
Wow, okay.
So Al-Attas argues that the essence of modern Western tragedy and a vast amount of its celebrated art is fundamentally fueled by this exact spirit of arrogance.
Wait, I want to make sure I'm following this. You are saying the very trait that is considered the ultimate disgrace in this theological framework, like refusing to submit, proudly opposing a higher power, is the exact thing that our stories are elevating.
That is the core of the critique, yeah. Western civilization, in his view, takes that theological disgrace and completely repackages it as human grandeur, intellectualism, and ultimate freedom.
That's wild.
Think about the philosophical movements we are often taught to admire in school. Humanism, existentialism, individualism.
Right, the big ones.
In Al-Attas's framework, these are just neutral academic terms. They are beautiful, highly sophisticated names given to the concept of rebellion.
Oh, I see.
They label it as the noble struggle for human freedom, so you, the viewer or the reader, you don't recognize it as arrogance, you just see it as intellectual bravery.
It's the beautiful packaging that the text mentions.
Exactly.
And I suppose that packaging works so well because it operates on an emotional level, right? Not a logical one.
Right, it's all about feeling.
Yeah, you get swept up in the drama of a character fighting the system, and you end up praising their defiance without realizing you're just cheering for pure ego.
Because the narrative machinery, the swelling violins, the lingering close-ups on a tearful face, it's all specifically crafted to make that defiance feel really poignant.
Right.
We admire their spirit of rebellion because the aesthetic makes it look incredibly beautiful.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because when you look at the sheer volume of examples provided in the source material, you realize this isn't just happening in, like, a few obscure indie films.
Oh, no, not at all.
This formula is the bedrock of our multiplexes. I was thinking about this, and it's like we've been conditioned to root for an arsonist just because the director made the fight they started to look so mesmerizing on screen.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. You are so captivated by the warmth and color of the flames that you completely ignore the fact that the house is literally burning down.
Exactly.
And the text provides a massive catalog of evidence to show just how universal this formula is. I mean, it traces all the way back to classical mythology.
Right, like Prometheus.
Yeah.
He steals fire from the gods to give to humanity. He is punished brutally for it. But Western culture basically frames him as this ultimate symbol of noble rebellion.
Yes. Or look at classical literature, like John Milton's Paradise Lost.
Oh, yeah.
Satan is depicted as this incredibly strong, charismatic figure who famously would rather rule in hell than serve in heaven.
The text actually mentions how readers often end up admiring Satan more than God in that poem, simply because the rebellion is written with such grandeur.
Right.
And we see the exact same thing in Frankenstein, the creation violently rebelling against the creator.
Totally.
But I want to pull this into the present day, because this stuff absolutely dominates modern cinema. The notes point out Ridley Scott's movie, which is literally called Prometheus.
Right, where humans travel across space to find their creators, the engineers. They don't like the answers they get, so they fight back. It's the exact same spirit of refusing to submit.
It's everywhere.
But let's look at something even more recent, like the film Oppenheimer.
Oh, that is such a fascinating example to view through this lens,
Yeah.
because Oppenheimer creates the atomic bomb. He is essentially stealing the fire of the gods.
Yes,
And he knows he has unleashed something totally catastrophic.
But look at how the film treats him. The cinematography uses these really tight, agonizing close-ups of Cillian Murphy's face.
Oh, the sound design, too.
Right, the sound design isolates his heavy breathing against deafening silence. It forces you to inhabit his anguish. The film turns the architect of mass destruction into this tragic, sympathetic icon.
Wow. Yeah. You are structurally forced to admire his tormented genius, even though the creation itself is inherently destructive.
Okay, I have a question about this, though. What about villains?
Okay, go on.
Like, the text mentions Thanos from the Avengers movies. Thanos is clearly the bad guy. He literally wants to murder half the universe. We aren't supposed to root for him, are we? How does he fit into this spirit of Iblis?
It all comes back to the framing. Yes, Thanos is the villain, but the directors frame him as a tragic figure carrying this heavy, heavy burden.
Right, he thinks he's saving everyone.
Exactly. He believes he is defying the natural order for the greater good of preserving resources. He sacrifices his own daughter and cries while doing it.
Which was a huge scene.
Right, the aesthetic manipulation is so strong there that a huge portion of the audience actually walked out of those theaters saying, his methods were wrong, but his underlying logic kind of made sense.
That is the subtle seduction Al-Attas is warning about.
Precisely. You are finding nobility in ultimate arrogance. I see. It's the aesthetic of defiance. It's in Dune. Part 2, where Paul Atreides knows his rebellion will trigger a holy war that kills billions, but the movie uses these sweeping golden triumphant shots to make his choice feel like destiny.
Yeah, completely.
Or it's in Joker, where a man's violent rebellion against a broken society is set to a stylish, gritty soundtrack that makes his descent into madness look, strangely cool.
The formula is remarkably constant. Something opposes a higher power, be it God, nature, the creator, or society. And that act of opposition is portrayed as aesthetically beautiful, heroic, or deeply tragic.
And it bleeds into music, too. Think about the last time you blasted Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody in your car.
Classic example.
You have millions of people joyously belting out, "Mama just killed a man," turning a literal confession of murder into this epic, prideful anthem of angst.
Right.
Or Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit, which is basically the sonic embodiment of youthful rebellion against everything.
So, if we take all these examples, the blockbusters, the classic literature, the stadium anthems, we really have to look at the logical next step.
Which is?
If this rebel hero trope is the air we breathe, What is it actively doing to our psychology?
Right, because Alice insists this isn't just entertainment. He calls it a subtle form of soul education.
Yes.
So if you're listening to this on your commute and you consume this media all the time, how exactly is it changing you on the inside?
The text argues that it quietly shifts your baseline of empathy, resulting in what it calls the silent erosion of the soul.
This silent erosion.
Wow. The first casualty is a hardening of the heart. Because you are constantly immersed in art that celebrates defiance, you just become desensitized to arrogance.
That makes a lot of sense.
Your emotional compass is essentially hacked to sympathize with behaviors that, ethically speaking, you should find completely repulsive.
It flips the internal magnet.
Precisely. And as a result, the concept of tawadhu, which is humility, the recognition of your own smallness before God, begins to evaporate. Think about how this manifests practically. Society starts to prefer the feeling of, I am strong, I make my own rules, rather than the posture of, I am weak, I surrender to a higher plan.
The notes mention this makes it incredibly difficult for people to accept Kota and Qadar, which are the Islamic concepts of divine destiny and fate.
Exactly.
I guess if you spend your entire life idolizing characters who violently smash through obstacles and just refuse to accept the hand they are dealt, you're going to struggle when you face a real-world problem you can't just fight your way out of.
That is the exact mechanism at play. If you lose your job or face an illness and your entire mental library of heroism is built on characters who rage against the machine, you won't know how to quietly accept your fate.
Right.
You have been systematically trained to fight it.
I mean, it completely inverts our definition of what makes someone great.
Right, the quiet virtues are lost.
It used to be that greatness was measured by, your depth of humility and patience. But today, greatness is basically measured by how loudly you live your truth. How boldly you disrupt the system, even if that disruption is entirely self-centered.
The patient content person who quietly accepts their lot is increasingly viewed by modern storytelling as a passive victim, someone lacking agency or conviction.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the loud, the defiant, the rule breakers, they are coded as the strong ones.
And the text points out something so insidious. Our hearts just get bored.
Oh, definitely.
When you are fed a constant diet of high-stakes cinematic tragedy and emotional rebellion, simple religious truths like surrender, patience, and just being quiet, they seem completely unappealing. They feel dull compared to the thrill of a cinematic battle against destiny.
People lose the capacity for reverential awe because they spend all their time celebrating the inflation of the human ego.
Okay, wait. I need to stop you there and play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure, go for it.
Because if you tell someone they shouldn't watch a sad movie or listen to an angry breakup album, they're going to look at you like you're crazy.
Oh, absolutely.
Isn't crying at a tragic movie basically a form of therapy? Psychologically speaking, aren't we taught that releasing these negative emotions through art is healthy?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you are hitting on the exact core tension of this entire philosophical debate. You are describing the concept of catharsis.
Right. Catharsis, the emotional release valve.
Yes. Thinkers like Aristotle and Karl Marx really champion this idea. The theory is that you watch a tragic film, you witness people suffering and rebelling, you cry in the theater, and afterward you feel emotionally cleansed because you discharged your pent-up angst through a fictional proxy.
Exactly. You walk out feeling lighter. It feels good.
But Al-Attas argues that this Western concept of catharsis is a massive deception.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The text uses a really grounding analogy here. Relying on cinematic catharsis is like being intensely angry and going to the gym to wail on a punching bag.
Yeah. Which is pretty standard advice for anger management.
And you do feel a temporary physical release afterward. But think about the mechanism. Did you solve the root problem that made you angry?
No.
No. The underlying source of the frustration is completely untouched. In fact, by violently acting out the aggression, your emotional volatility actually grows stronger. You are literally training your nervous system to associate anger with violence and drama.
Oh, wow. So the feeling of relief is real, but it's totally temporary. And it's basically tricking you while reinforcing the negative emotion in the long run.
It creates a dependency. You need bigger, louder, more tragic art to get the same emotional release the next time.
That is terrifying.
In contrast to that, Al-Attas points to the Islamic concept of tazkiyah, which is the actual purification of the soul.
So if I'm stressed or overwhelmed and I can't just go watch a movie to blow off steam, what does tazkiyah actually look like practically?
It doesn't come from sitting in the dark watching someone else suffer on screen. It comes from zikrullah, which is the active remembrance of God, and from exercising actual quiet patience in the face of your real-world trials.
I see.
Western catharsis gives you a momentary emotional spike, leaving you addicted to drama. Tazkiyah provides a lasting cleansing that fills the heart with stability.
So what does this all mean for how we define a good life? Because if we shouldn't be chasing that dramatic emotional high, what is the alternative?
The text draws a very sharp line between what the West calls pleasure and what Al-Attas defines as true happiness.
Okay, let's look at pleasure versus happiness.
Pleasure is what Western aesthetics pursue. It is entirely dependent on external stimulation. You know, a thrilling movie, a dramatic song, a fleeting achievement. It is a temporary high.
Okay.
True happiness, however, is defined as a lasting sakina.
A deep tranquility.
Yes. It is the state of knowing God and being entirely content with your fate. It is a heart that remains steady and calm even when the outside world is falling apart. It doesn't need the artificial stimulation of a tragic film to feel alive.
And that completely flips the definition of beauty, too.
It really does.
The notes argue that true beauty doesn't make your heart race. It doesn't give you anxiety or inflate your ego so you feel like you can conquer the world.
If a piece of art inflates your ego, in this framework, it is not beauty. It is a deception.
Oh.
True beauty elevates the spirit. It brings that tranquility, that sakina. It should actually make you acutely aware of your own weakness and the absolute magnificence of God.
There is a very practical litmus test in the text for this, actually.
Oh!
Yeah, think about the last time you walked out of a theater. If you walked out feeling empty, heavily burdened, or like the world is just a lonely, meaningless struggle, that was not true beauty, no matter how good the cinematography was.
Right.
But if you experience a piece of art and you leave feeling calm, small but grateful, and mindful of a higher power, that is true beauty.
It completely changes the metric by which we evaluate every single piece of media we touch.
Which brings us to the ultimate question, the radical solution.
Let's hear it.
If this spirit of Iblis is this deeply embedded in the very DNA of Western storytelling, how do we fix it? Like, can a studio just take a massive Hollywood blockbuster, keep the incredible special effects and the pacing, but just swap out the dialogue to include a positive moral message?
A quick fix.
Right. Can we just slap a halal sticker on a Marvel movie?
This raises an important question, and it is where Al-Attas is entirely uncompromising. His answer is a definitive no.
So no minor tweaks, no cultural adaptations.
None. Because the root architecture of the story is already corrupt. You cannot paste a righteous label onto a narrative structure that fundamentally relies on the celebration of rebellion and the inflation of the human ego to generate its dramatic tension.
So what is the alternative? Do we just stop telling stories?
Not at all. But the text states that the solution requires entirely rejecting Western civilization as the foundational blueprint for art.
That's massive.
All fields, film, literature, music, they must be torn down to the studs and rebuilt from the pure foundation of Tawhid, which is the absolute oneness and centrality of God.
That is a staggering undertaking. What does a story built on Tawhid actually look and feel like for the audience?
For starters, the protagonist cannot be a rebel. The hero must embody that deep humility and submission.
Okay.
If the character faces a massive tragedy or immense suffering, that trial must logically and aesthetically lead them to a profound increase in faith and contentment, not to a cool, stylized defiance of their fate.
So instead of the camera panning up as the hero shakes their fist at the sky and curses their destiny, the camera captures their quiet, patient endurance.
Yes. The ultimate purpose of the art must be to remind the audience of the creator, not to glorify the human creation.
Right.
If you finish a book or a movie and your dominating thought is, wow, human beings are amazingly resilient and powerful, then under this specific framework, the art has failed.
The notes offer this really stark contrast to sum it all up. They say Western art is designed to leave you with the feeling, life is suffering, but I am strong.
While art rooted in true Islamic aesthetics should leave you with the feeling, life is suffering, but God is greater and I am at peace.
I am strong versus I am at peace. That difference is massive.
It changes everything.
It changes the entire goal of why we consume stories in the first place. Thank you for walking through the mechanics of this with me.
My pleasure.
And for you listening, thank you for joining us on this really intense exploration. What we've seen today is that a simple trip to the movies, or just putting your headphones on, is, according to Al-Attas, actually an active battleground for your soul.
It really is.
It's a space where the very definitions of greatness, beauty, and happiness are constantly being engineered and contested.
It demands that we become active, critical consumers of culture, rather than just letting the screen wash over us.
Absolutely. So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. The next time you find yourself entirely captivated by a brilliant, charismatic anti-hero on screen, maybe it's a rogue detective who breaks all the rules to get the job done, a brilliant hacker fighting a corrupt system, or a deeply misunderstood villain with a grand, tragic plan, I want you to pause and ask yourself a question.
A very important question.
Are you actually admiring their sense of justice? Or has the director simply seduced you with the aesthetic of their arrogance, whose spirit is really being celebrated in that moment?
A vital question to ask.
Until next time, we wish you true tranquility, that lasting sakina, and a wonderful rest of your day.